So my boyfriend Curtis and I got a package in the mail from his Nana recently, and it was a present from when she went to Germany. It was a build your own metal menorah. And so in time for Hanukkah, I thought that it would be cool to paint it, especially because I was the one that was tasked with doing it, since Curtis is not quite a visual artist. And so I guess anything decorative becomes my job. So assembling it was pretty easy. I was able to fold it for the most part. Some of the parts were a little bit difficult because I have weak little baby hands, and so I had to use leverage from like a paintbrush or something like that. But for the most part, it was pretty easy. I had difficulty though figuring out the instructions because anything that's purely graph-based without any type of written language or video that accompanies it, I just have a really hard time with that. And so it took me a minute. I folded it the wrong way at first. Oops. So I decided to use this really pretty but cheap acrylic craft paint because I didn't really feel like mixing paints from more pigmented stuff that you would use in the studio, since it's less consistent. When something is produced in a bottle like that, you get it all the same color, and so that was important to me to have a flat color. I will say that if you decide to paint something made out of metal, if you don't have a primer, like I did not use, then if you're painting it on something that's largely non-porous, like metal or glass, it's really hard for it to adhere at first. Something like canvas or paper that will have a tooth to it is a lot easier to get the paint to stick to, and you don't have to worry so much. But if you're using something, smooth and flat, like glass or metal, then a lot of times the paint will have to dry completely before you can put on a second coat. Because if you don't, otherwise the paint that you had originally put on will just come up in kind of like patchy chunks if you try to brush new paint on top of it. I've had this problem before painting a storefront window where it took a whole lot more time than it really should have because I had to wait between each individual coat. And a lot of times craft acrylic paint, because it's cheap, isn't super pigmented, and so it's going to be kind of translucent. So aside from having to wait to let the paint dry between coats, it actually didn't take too long to get this done. The most difficult part was making sure that the outlines around the lettering and on the dreidels and stuff like that were nice and clean. But other than that, it was a pretty easy craft. And I wanted it to stay kind of simple because I think that there's something really pretty about that color that I wanted it to speak for itself. I feel like maybe some orange would have looked really great with that blue, but since that's not a traditional Hanukkah color, I didn't want to, ruin the beauty of the piece by doing that. I'm not sure if we're going to use our candles in it or if we're going to put it in probably we're going to just put them in our taller one because the wax might mess up the paint on the smaller one. Squid, you probably shouldn't be doing that. That's not what that's for. Okay? Since I'm posting this on Tuesday, it is the first night of Hanukkah, so to anybody celebrating Hanukkah, Happy Hanukkah! I hope you have a great and meaningful and peaceful holiday. We really need it this time of year, don't we? I'm excited for the fried food. I've never had latkes, and they're special Hanukkah donuts, to my understanding. Those sound good. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch my videos, and I'm really excited for you to stick with me and see what happens in the next video. Happy holidays, everyone!